Hello, welcome to this very special day for the world of audio. I am Nagendar Sharma from Earshot. As we turn one today at Earshot, the world's first Dolby-enabled podcast and audio platform, we are bringing to you the leading voices from the world of sound, technology, and markets. To kickstart our podcast, we have a very special guest, legendary broadcaster and acclaimed veteran writer, Mark Tully. Mark Tully, who needs no introduction, whose 6-decade-long career defines broadcast journalism and the evolution of sound in the world, particularly in South Asia and India. Sir Mark, as he is popularly known, was born in India, in Calcutta, now Kolkata, in 1935. And he returned to India in 1965, not in a broadcasting job, about which we'll be talking later. And he has stayed on in this country. He did not settle down in England. He has settled down in India. And his years in journalism, in broadcast journalism, were the most momentous, from the creation of Bangladesh to assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. Perhaps the most momentous years in India and South Asia. This is what Mark Tully covered, turned BBC into a household name through the impartiality and credibility. Sir Mark was honored with Order of British Empire, OBE, in 2002 by Prince Charles, and in India, he has been honored by Padma Shri and Padma Bhushan. Sir Mark, as I said, needs no introduction, and to kick off the podfest, let's listen in from Sir Mark. Share his views on the Earshot Podcast Festival. Sir, we'll be discussing with you over the course of next few minutes the future of audio and something which has been very close to your heart for more than 6 decades now, close to 6 decades. Mark, sir, my welcome to the Earshot Podcast Festival, and my first question to you is that why did you choose to be a broadcast journalist?
Well, I didn't choose. As in many people's lives, a fluke, luck, or God, call it what you like, made me one. Because I was intending to be a priest in the Church of England, but the bishop thought I was not the right person. So I then went and worked in the NGO sector. And in the NGO sector, the organization I worked in there was internal trouble and the founder was sacked, so I resigned in protest. And from there, I got a job in the BBC's personnel department, but I found it very boring. So when a vacancy came up for someone in the Delhi office, I held up my hand. And although I'd only been in the BBC 1 year, somehow I got the job. And it was in that job that I first started actually broadcasting. So if the bishop had let me be a priest, or if there had not been the rumpus there was in the NGO, if the BBC had not heaven only knows what reason.
So Mark, sir, it was by accident, and had that accident not been there, the world would have missed one of the finest broadcast journalists. Sir, on my reading up about you a little bit. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. So sir, on reading about you a little bit, I found that within 4 years you were back in England, and in 1969 you were heading the Hindi service. So BBC की शुरुआत आपकी एक तरह से जर्नलिज्म की शुरुआत हिंदी सर्विस से हुई, उसके बारे में थोड़ा सा हमें बताइए सर।
शुरुआत हुआ जब मैं दिल्ली में था, उसके बाद मैं हिंदी सर्विस ज्वाइन किया था, और मैं हिंदी सर्विस में बहुत सारे बाबूगिरी था, मैनेजमेंट, हिंदी प्री प्रोग्राम ऑर्गेनाइजर मैनेजमेंट में था, और मैनेजमेंट में बहुत सारे बाबूगिरी है, मैं बाबूगिरी पसंद नहीं करता हूँ. सो मैंने एक जैसा ट्रांसफर किया और मैं हिंदी सर्विस की राइटिंग में शुरू किया. और एक वहाँ से मेरा जर्नलिज्म बिल्कुल तेजी से आगे जाता था, क्योंकि मैं रोज रोज कमेंट्रीज लिखता था. और उन जमानों में वो बांग्लादेश के क्राइसिस शुरू हो गया, इसलिए रोज
जी
रोज
जी जी
में
1971 1971 का बांग्लादेश वॉर.
हाँ हाँ
Mark Saab, with close to 6 decades in journalism and almost the entire part, so you have actually seen radio, you have seen audio, you have seen broadcast journalism grow. Then, it faced a crisis with TV coming up across the world, particularly in India. What would you rate your most fabulous moment as a broadcast journalist?
That's a very difficult one. My most fabulous moment as a broadcaster, I suppose, really, one of the most. So there's been so many interesting stories I've covered, from the assassination, the hanging of Bhutto, the Pakistan election, which led to that, the return of the emergency and the return of Indira Gandhi, the Bhopal gas disaster, assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. So each of those had moments in them. But perhaps the one which pleased me most was announcing the victory of the Janata Party in 1977, because the Janata Party's victory sealed my return to India.
Yes,
Had
Mark
the
Saab, I would like
Janata
to tell the listeners that between 1975 and 77, you were not in India because the then Prime Minister, late Indira Gandhi, had ordered you to leave India when emergency was imposed. So the regime was angry
yes,
with your reports.
yes, actually almost all foreign correspondents left. I was told to leave within 24 hours. But the point is, when the Junta government came back to power, I knew all the Junta politicians. I was very fond of many of them. I was particularly fond of Chaudhry Charan Singh and Chaudhry Devi Lal. And I knew that I was not going to be thrown out by then. But had Mrs. Gandhi returned, I think she may well have continued the emergency, and then I might have been thrown out again.
Then you might not have returned to India. Mark, sir, a very natural question that arises is that you have told us that you became a broadcast journalist, not something that you wanted to do in life. But when other mediums came up, print was obviously older than radio, and then TV came up. Why did you decide to stick to radio? Why did you decide to stick to radio broadcast?
Well, I did some writing, and I did quite a lot of television. I did the whole television series on the lives of Jesus, for instance. I did a wonderful, at least for me, it was wonderful, because I'm a railway maniac, and so I had the privilege of doing a television program called From Karachi to the Khyber. So I've not been exclusively radio, but my first love is radio. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And if anyone asks me whether I would prefer television or radio, I would automatically say television, radio rather, because I enjoyed doing it. I think the writing is much harder in radio than in television, because television, the pictures are painted for you, but in radio you have to paint the pictures for the listeners. Um, and when things, for instance, I'd done 3 um, uh, kumelas, and telling people what a kumela like is like is not an easy thing to do in radio, because
Absolutely.
such a
That is
unique
the
thing.
point that is the point I'm coming to. I want you to share that with the listeners. Mark, sir, how has the world of audio, particularly in storytelling, evolved over the years? I mean, has it been more challenging? Has it become more comfortable? What do you think?
Well, it's changed enormously. You know, when I first started, the BBC had its radio and television channel. In its radio channels, it didn't have any, in the news broadcasts, news bulletins, it didn't have any sound at all. And now if you listen to BBC Radio, by sound, obviously there was sound there, but you didn't hear the reporter speaking or anything like that. It was all read out by the news reader. Well, all that has changed now. When I first started, one of the first stories I did when I came back to radio in 1971 was the Simla Summit. And in those days, you actually had to go down to the post office in Simla to give them a telegram to get your message across. And the idea of getting your message across in voice was ludicrous. You just couldn't do it. And then, of course, we went through the long period, where most of our voice contributions went by telephone, and that posed big problems of line quality. Now, of course, it is ridiculously easy, really, for you to put across voice material. So all that connectivity has changed hugely since my time. The competition from television has got much greater. The competition for listenership in India has got much greater as well. One of the reasons I think why the BBC was so widely listened to for a long period of time was because there was really no radio or television except either All India Radio and Doordarshan, the government channel, or foreign stations. So people turned to foreign stations, get independent, non-government news, and happily we had all those wonderful people in the Hindi
Yes,
service.
sir, you're making a very important point, and actually this is even taught in journalism classes, that when there was only All India Radio and Doordarshan, yes, newspapers were there, so the BBC credibility and impartiality that which you led, which turned BBC into a household name. But sir, with the information explosion, as you were pointing out, with the television coming in, and now with the digital world, the technology has done so much. So what do you think, sir, in today's world, rapidly changing technological world, is the future of audio in all forms, whether current affairs, whether entertainment, in all forms? So what do you think is the future of audio in the digital world?
Well, as you can tell from the trouble we had getting the signal together, I'm not a technical man. I'm not an expert on podcasting or digital or anything like that. But first thing and foremostly, I would say that sound radio, sound broadcasting, by podcasting, by listen back, by whatever it is, has a great future. I'm absolutely sure of that. There was a famous lady who was controller of Radio 4 called Liz, I can't remember her other name, but she once said to me, radio has a great future provided you don't put pictures with it. And what she meant is, going back to what I said earlier, the key thing to radio is let the sound do the telling of the story. Don't mix the two up. And if you start mixing the two up, you will lose two of the great advantages of radio. First is convenience. You can listen to radio, be shaving, be driving your car, be anything you like. You can't do that with television. Second one is this whole business of people making pictures for themselves. The thing about radio is you have to listen to it carefully. And if you listen to it carefully and create pictures for yourself, then it will go into your head and you will remember it. So if you start putting pictures to it, then radio listeners will get lazy and not put the pictures in, not draw the pictures for themselves, not use their imagination. That is one of the great strengths of radio.
Mark, sir, yeah, you were telling a very interesting point that the sound, let the story be told, let the sound tell the story in the world of sounds. So, sir, when one has so many mediums, so what do you think are the major advantages of the world of sound, the audio today?
Well, I've mentioned them really, but I think the advantages are one, as we've said, you are left to imagine for yourself the pictures, and that means that the pictures stay much more firmly in your mind. Second one is convenience, of course. Third one is there is an intimacy about sound which is lacking in television. I remember I was once speaking in England at a function, and I said, I don't know why so many people have come to hear me speak. I'm only a journalist. And after it's over, an old lady came up to me and said, you want to know why I listen to you? I'll tell you. And I said, and what's that? She said, because I think you're my friend. That intimacy between the broadcaster and the listener can be much more profound, I think, than the intimacy between the broadcaster and the viewer in television. So for all those reasons and many others, storytelling, has always been, in the Indian culture, for instance, a wonderful way of communicating, and people have always loved it. And I am sure that there's a great future for sound.
Yes, sir. Mark, sir, with the technological advancements and with the digital world now almost taking everybody by a storm, so now one of the advantages of audio also seems to be that in the world of podcasting, you can have a listener listening to you, individual listenership, having the listening at the time of the will, unlike the radio where you had specified times of broadcast. So
Yes.
the point I'm bringing you to is that how Mark, sir, over the years, when you only had shortwave, then you had medium wave, then FM took up, though unfortunately in some parts of the world all programs are not allowed in FM. So sir, what do you think now from here on in storytelling? You see more innovations coming in. You see that more and more people will be hooked to innovations in the world of sound.
I don't, to be honest, I don't know whether there'll be more innovations. I know little enough about the existing innovations. But I do think that for my radio listening has radically changed, I have to say, because of the facility you have to listen to programs after they have been broadcast. So I'm no longer tied. For instance, many days I will listen to the BBC Radio's program, current affairs program, World at One, at about 6 o'clock in the evening when I do some yoga, whereas it was actually being broadcast now at about 5 o'clock. And often in the evening, I've just listened to a lovely radio program, a radio play series about, it's a version of the famous Victorian novelist, novel about Indian politics in the 19th century, British politics in the 19th century. So I listened to that. It was broadcast on a week, different incidents each week, but I was able to lump it all together and sit down for about 3 hours or more and listen to the whole thing at once. So that has made a huge difference. But my worry about this is that what has happened in the BBC, for instance, is that too much emphasis has now gone on these things called podcasts, and money has been taken off Radio 4 to put into these podcasts. And I think that's very dangerous thing, because I think people still want also to know that at a certain time of day there will be a radio program they particularly love. Like, for instance, people in Britain are hugely addicted to the famous soap opera about village life called The Archers, which has run and run and run and run. And so many of them remember that, think of it as 7 o'clock Archers time. I must put on The Archers.
Sir, I'm shifting focus a bit from Radio 4, bringing you back to India. आपकी जो किताबें हैं, नो फुल स्टॉप्स इन इंडिया और इंडिया इन स्लो मोशन, उनमें से किसी का कोई सेकंड सीजन आएगा सर? इज एनी ऑफ दोज कीपिंग यू बिजी? कोई उसका सेकंड सीजन की आप तैयारी कर रहे हैं सर?
अब मैं कुछ जैसा कहानी लिख दिया 1-2 साल पहले, और अब भी मैं सोचता हूँ कि मेरा जो जिंदगी के बारे में, अपने जिंदगी के बारे में लिखूंगा। एक पब्लिशर है जो बहुत उत्साह के साथ बोलता है कि आप लिख दीजिए। मैंने उसको कहा था कि मैं मेरे अपने बारे में नहीं लिखना चाहता हूँ, लेकिन बोलता है लिख दीजिए। लेकिन मेरा उम्र है 85, 85.
Sir, you're turning 86 very soon, this month itself.
Yes. Yeah. In 2 weeks' time.
Yes, yeah. Sir. Yes, sir.
86, I would be. तो अभी तो time है थोड़ा सा आराम करना है.
Yes. Sir Mark, it has been a pleasure to speak to you as always. We have had a very insightful and historical view of the world of audio. Thank you very much, sir, for participating in the Earshot podcast festival. We hope to listen from you more and more. Thank you very much, sir Mark.
Thank you very much.